brought by Abdul Baha, brought to the vault, and he told how Abdul Baha himself with his own hands took that wooden casket and went to put it into this marble sarcophagus, and it wouldn't go. Just a fraction on the end was too big. So they obtained a saw and sawed the wood off the end. And when you go pilgrimage, you can be shown the wood and the sawdust. Tiny little pieces of wood on the end that they were last time I saw them, they were on a plate, on a cloth on a plate. Tiny, only little pieces of wood. Sawn off from that as Abdul Baha finally laid that coffin of the Bab into that marble sarcophagus. At another time we were in Burma, and that sarcophagus, they showed us, especially took us into the Shwedagon temple to see the museum in that. And there at the end was a life-size model, life-size of statue of Buddha. And I said to him, yes, one of the old believers took us to see it. And I said, what a beautiful piece of work. They said, no, look at the marble. That is the same marble from the same quarry that we made that marble sarcophagus. And you can see a photo of that in one of the Baha'i worlds when all the Baha'is were assembled together at the day it was being shipped, being sent aboard ship to come to Cairo and come to the world center.
And that marble is a very, very pale pink. Not white, pink.
Very, very pale. Then the guardian told us of how Abdul Baha, with his hair fallen, he said, across his face, with his hands on the open sarcophagus, when he chanted, he said, he chanted with such power, giving praise to God that at last a manifestation of God could safely be laid to rest, away from all the enemies that were seeking that coffin. And finally, every one of us at the table, in the tone that he spoke, I think we all had tears.
Tears were streaming down Abdul Baha's face.
That's what he said. Tears from Abdul Baha, giving glory and praise to God that at last a manifestation had a final and safe resting place.
Then there was deadly silence.
Yes.
We were also moved by the way the guardian said, and then he bowed his head and he said, I was present on that occasion. He was a boy of 12 years old, and his grandfather had taken him into
that vault. He was there. And then he told him how Abdul Baha stood by whilst workers came. It had all been arranged. The workers came in and brought all the cement and stone and built up the wall. He said a great massive wall closing off that vault forever. And you know the tunnel went in from the front of the mountain, not down through the floor. It went in from the front of the mountain where the steps are that go down to the 9 terraces, and went in that way. And that's where the wall was sealed up to that vault of the Baal.
Another night, beloved guardian was talking to us about how we should conduct ourselves. And he said, you know, no one is perfect. The Baha'is are not perfect. But we must have the courage of our conviction. We must be firm. We've got to strive to be perfect. But he said, you know, sometimes the Baha'is are inclined to bend the laws of Baha'u'llah. and we must not bend the laws of Baha'u'llah. If there's any bending to do, the Bahá'ís have to bend to follow the laws of Baha'u'llah. And he said, sometimes this will make us unpopular, but then unpopularity for the faith is good. So sometimes when we're out with a crowd, and especially these days, everybody must have a drink, mustn't they? It's the thing to do. Okay, we just have to be firm.
We don't join in.
And once we are firm, people recognise, and they may laugh and joke, but they respect if we stand firm to our own beliefs. One night, there was a lady with us that only spoke Spanish and Persian, Spanish and French. And Shoghi Effendi was giving another talk, and Rahir Khanum said, Shoghi Effendi, do you mind if I go and sit by that pilgrim? And so he gave permission. And so Rahir Khanum quietly translated for her.
In French.
In French. And suddenly Rahir Khanum said, Shoghi Effendi, I can't translate that. You'll have to. And immediately the guardian switched into French. This is some of the little things. I think we know the guardian for his greatness. We know that it was through his patience and his persistence that gradually the administrative order was unfolded. But he had humour too. And we'd like to tell you one or two of these little things so that you could see that the guardian was just like us. He was human too.
Just before Effendi became guardian of the faith, that the first national spiritual assemblies came into being. And it wasn't until 1928-29 when the first bylaws of local and national spiritual assemblies, the charters that were given to these God-given institutions, was made available through the assistance of one of the American lawyers in conjunction with the Guardian, that these became available. And it was the Guardian's effort of constantly getting more and more local spiritual assemblies, and his call around the world, that created the basis for further national spiritual assemblies to be established. And it wasn't until 1953, by which time then he had 12, with the formation of the Italo-Swiss National Assembly jointly, made the 12th National Assembly, on which he launched the 10-year-long World Spiritual Crusade. And it was the Guardian that gave us the inspiration and the call for the achievement of all those goals that the 10-year crusade achieved. You got? To me, and subsequently his call for all the national and local spiritual assemblies, local assemblies he called for, to become incorporated, to become legally established within the laws of their country, so that they have proper legal status for even local assemblies. Of course, it's necessary for national spiritual assemblies. What you've lost.
Eagerly for the Rizwan message to come out from the beloved Guardian. And in those messages, he'd tell us how wonderful we'd been, what we'd done.
What's been achieved.
And sometimes we thought, well...
He boosts up the Baha'i world.
And then he'd say, now is the time to do this and that and something else. But he was ahead of us, encouraging, urging. And Shoghi Effendi in May 53 wrote, the driving force of the divine plan Its driving force is the energizing influence generated by the revelation heralded by the Bab and proclaimed by the Baha'u'llah. Its marshal is none other than the author of the divine plan. Its standard bearers are the hands of the cause of God, appointed in every continent of the globe. Its generals are the 12 national assemblies participating in the execution of its design. Its vanguard is the chief executors of Abdul Bahá's master plan, their allies and associates. Its legions are the rank of the file of the believers standing behind these same national spiritual assemblies and sharing in the global task embracing the American, the European, the African, the Asiatic and Australian fronts. The charter directing its course is the immortal tablets that have flowed from the pen of the centre of the Kathmandu himself. The armour with which its on-rushing hosts have been invested is the glad tidings of God's message in this day. The principles underlying the order proclaimed by his messenger and the laws and ordinances governing his dispensation. The battle cry animating its heroes and heroines is the cry of Ya Bahar al-Ampar, Ya Ali Mulk Allah. That is the encouragement that the beloved guardian used to give. And do you know, the year after he had been appointed or realised that he was the guardian of the faith, did you realise that he revealed a prayer which he asked every believer to say? I don't think the Persians have that prayer, but all the Western world believers did. And this is the prayer. We pray that thou, the beloved, will bestow upon Shoghi Effendi all the strength and vigour that will enable him to pursue over a long and unbroken period of strenuous labour the supreme task of achieving, in collaboration with the friends in every land, the speedy triumph of the cause of Baha'u'llah. Again, that shows some of the beloved guardians' humbleness. He wanted us all to help him. And, you know, he talked to us about the monument of the greatest holy leader. And he explained how the steps were really symbolised the local assembly.
The round circle in the base of the shrine of the greatest holy leader.
And that the pillars were the National Assembly, and that the dome is the Universal House of Justice.
Joining all the national assemblies together.
And then he said, you know, if the greatest holy leader were to raise her head in her coffin, she would look direct to the shrine of Baha'u'llah. And Rahia Kamal said, but Shoghi Effendi must have put it that way.
Of course, he said, of course.
You know, one night we were all served with rice by the beloved guardian himself. And this night I was at the end of the table, Collis was sitting direct opposite Shoghi Effendi. And after we were all served, Shoghi Effendi took something, a little vial of something out of his pocket, unscrewed the lid, sprinkled something over his rice, and then
he put it back in his pocket, and as he looked up and caught me watching him. I felt a little embarrassed, but and he turned and he said, have you ever tasted saffron? I said, no, Shoghi Effendi. He said, pass me your plate. So I put my plate out, and he put some saffron on it. And Madge also, he turned to her, put some on her plate. But no one else got any. We were the two that were closest to him that night. He placed them, every night they'd all get placed in different positions. Rear Cardinal was seated next to him. Another night we were served with borscht. You know borscht?
A beetroot soup.
A beetroot. Well, it's
beetroot.
it's like milk and beetroot all mixed up together, you know.
Anyway, the guardian picked up his spoon and just put his spoon down again. And here Karen said, Shoghi Effendi, didn't you like it?
Is that what you call your Western dishes? Give me the Eastern dishes any time. That's what he said.
And he did not eat it.
He didn't eat it.
And I was sitting at the end of the table. And when I finished, he looked at me and he said, did you like it? I said, well, as a matter of fact, I did, Shoghi Effendi. Proof, have another serve. So you see, the Guardian had plenty of humour too.
He had humour too, yeah.
And then another, just
A
little
person.
glimpses of the Guardian that I think is lovely to have. Rahir Khanum, and of course Lily Collins and Jessie and Ethel Revell used to take in turn of making the sweets each night. And one morning Rahir Khanum said, oh, I don't know what to make tonight. And I said to her, Rahir Khanum, I will. Oh, she said, no, you're on pilgrimage. You mustn't do anything when you're on pilgrimage. But later she gave in. So that night I made apple with a nice short crust on top, cake. And Shoghi Effendi had 2 serves. And then Rahir Khanum said, oh, Shoghi Effendi, Madge made that. He looked at me, gave me a lovely smile. The next night it was Millie Collins' turn, and she said, Madge, once when I was in Jerusalem, I brought back a lovely chocolate cake with chocolate icing all over. The Guardian loved it. Do you think you could make one? Now, we were there just 5 years after the establishment of the State of Israel, and they were still on rations. It was Jessie Revell's job to take our passport, go down and get 10 days' ration when every pilgrim arrived. And you know, I was in a country where we had plenty of milk and plenty of eggs and plenty of butter and plenty of everything. And I looked in that cupboard and I thought, oh, how am I ever to make this cake? Anyway, I managed it. And again, the Guardian had 2 helpings. And this time he just turned to me and he said, and you made this too. So the next 2 nights, similar thing happened. So perhaps it's a good job when we left, or else the Guardian would have been getting too much. Because you know what Collis always says, just as you're just going to start to eat a nice luscious piece of cake, he says, a moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips.
Well, I can assure you that as you know Shoghi Effendi by his writing and the magnificence of his English, particularly that book, God Passes By, some of his other wonderful letters, the dispensation of Baha'u'llah, the promised day has come, the advent of divine justice, all these books, his writings and his letters addressed to the Baha'i world. He set a new standard in English and we really know him. But I do want you to know that he was wonderful to be with. He was warm, he was loving and kind. He made you feel very much at ease. And yet he had the, I don't know how to put it, perhaps majesty and power that came from him as a guardian that clearly made you realize the enormity of this great revelation and of the tremendous changes that were to undergo in the world as this revelation progressively and steadily took control of the whole planet. And you know, Baha'u'llah has written that all on earth will become believers. In another, he told that to one of the Afnan. And in another case, Baha'u'llah has written that God will subdue the hearts of all that dwell on earth. So we know that the greatness of this revelation in the kingdom of God is a glorious future in front of the world. But we've got a mighty job to really get it going, to get it established.
Looking at my notes, do you know that the mountain of God, Mount Carmel, part of it belongs to many national assemblies of the world? The beloved guardian gave endowments to about 12, I guess it was 12, I'm not sure how many, but to some of the national assemblies around the world. And I understand that the bit that Australia has is immediately below the archive building. So you see, God's holy mountain belongs to the Bahá'ís of the world. The beloved guardian saw it.
He had set up, for instance, an Israeli branch of the National Assembly of Australia, for instance. And through that branch, we have the ownership of that piece of land that's in front of the archives. I can't define exactly how big it is, I've forgotten. But there is, and this is the same with many different national assemblies that all own the parts of that property of that holy mountain, the mountain of the Lord. And that was the mountain that, of course, Baha'u'llah revealed his tablet of Carmel and makes it such a significant mountain and fulfills your holy books, fulfills your prophecies.
And then our last night with the beloved guardian came. And he talked to us of the two plans that are in existence. The plan of God, of which we do not know very much, only what is written. And then there is the divine plan of Abdul Baha, to which we are all obliged to do the best we can. And he said, because of world events, even the divine plan may temporarily be disrupted. But he said, we have to carry on. It doesn't matter what happens. And only
well, in that plan, Guardian foreshadowed then, and he named a number of references in the writings of Baha'u'llah, where he foreshadowed the rolling up of the old world order, where he said, he quoted from, I know it's in Advent of Divine Justice, page 68, I think it is, where he said there would come a time when all eyes would stare up with terror and the flesh of men shall creep. And when he said Baha'u'llah made reference to events as a result of waywardness and unbelief, he said, there shall be that which shall suddenly appear that will make the limbs of mankind quake. Then and only then will the divine standard be unfurled and the nightingale of paradise warble its melody. They were words of Baha'u'llah. He said, go home and tell the believers that the world will move into its own calamities, but as a result of which mankind will progressively turn to God. Tell the believers this, but tell them not to dwell on it. Tell them to bring the believers into the Ark of the Covenant. Baha'u'llah's Ark, not Noah's Ark, Baha'u'llah's Ark of the Covenant. His mighty Ark, his mighty revelation. Bring them into that. That's the work they must achieve. But not dwell on the calamities that will probably come. The more people, as the House of Justice has said, the more we bring in, the less will be the calamities. The more people we bring into the faith, the greater shall be the cause of God, and less will be the problems that will beset mankind.
And that was our very last night. And the guardian was so loving and so kind. And then he gave us a carpet about 6 by 3 to take home to have hung in the Hazarabal Kuds of Australia.
It's about 3 metres by 1.5 metres.
And then, as we left, he shook hands with us. And then he said, "Please pray for me." Such a pleading voice, "As I pray for you." Thank you.
And he said, "And then you will come again." But I didn't know I'd be coming so often. I've been 16 times in the World Centre as a result of his appointment. I didn't know that.
Thank you.
Thank you, friends.
Anbefaler å forbinde seg i en bønn, og vi har en halvtimes pause da Mr. Furtan skal komme og snakke om Hokopelat, og jeg ber dere kom heller 2 minutter før klokken 11 enn 2 minutter etter av hensyn til Mr. Furtan. Da avslutter vi med en bønn.
Thou hast brought into being all created things through the power of thy behest. O Lord,